Hey guys, welcome back. This is Chris. Today I am going to present to you the finished product. We've been doing a video series on building an Ben Kenobi Roman props MK1 from start to finish, and boy, it's been a real learning experience. But we've got it completed, and I think it came out looking great. So I'm going to kind of take you through some of the challenges that I had, some of the things I needed to do to get everything to work. But let me just give you a tour of the final product. So at the bottom, we have our chrome cold sync knob with our D-ring. It moves really free. We've got our booster section here, our graphics clamp card, a graphics clamp with our calculator bubble strip card. Switch assembly is right underneath there. On the other side, we have our transistors. These guys were a little bit of a challenge. I'll go into that in a little bit. Got a little grenade section up here, our wind vane, and then our emitter up at the top with our blade plug. So I'm going to take the blade plug out. I actually had to modify it slightly due to the emitter, the PCB and the PCB holder that I used. It didn't let the blade plug really fit in there very well. So we'll have to take that out. But let's turn it on. Pretty loud. Really cool. Ran into a couple issues. One, the Neopixel connector that's at the top of the crystal chamber that I showed you wasn't making connection to the PCB board on the other side. Luckily, I didn't have to take anything apart. I had a very small rubber washer that was really thin, and what I was able to do is pop out the Neopixel PCB and just move that rubber washer right over it, and it sat perfectly inside the holder, and it made the PCB stand up a little bit taller and made perfect connection with the other side PCB, which was perfect, and it made the nice connection here. The other issue I ran into was the bubble strip. You really have got to sand these way down in order to get your buttons to work. And the auxiliary button's still a little bit wonky because it sits up a little high. Power seems to work just fine, but the auxiliary a little bit wonky. So I'm going to have to do is take the bubble strip out and sand it down ever so slightly on this end, just a little bit more. But what I'm trying to avoid is you see how clear those bubbles are. I want to keep those bubbles as clear as I can. And the closer I get to them, it's going to make those real milky, and I don't really want to do that. So it's a typical issue with these lightsabers, with the bubble strip and getting the buttons to work perfectly is almost impossible. It really, really is. The other thing I had to do is on these transistors, I made a big boo-boo. I put in the chassis backwards. So instead of the transistors going in and fitting in perfectly, they actually fit in this side, which is completely wrong. Just for reference, the screw holes on this side are smaller than the screw holes on this side. So when I set the set screw in to keep the chassis in place on the inside, I just put it on the wrong side. Not a huge big deal. What I did was I instead of having these screw in, what I did was I sanded off the screw portions of the transistors, and I used metal cement and cemented these portions with the rings, and then cemented the rings right onto the graphics clamp card, and they're not moving. They're on there super solid, and it just, they serve no purpose whatsoever. The only thing it might do is keep the clamp on a little bit more sturdy, but for the most part, if everything's screwed in nice and tight, it generally won't move. The other thing I ran into too was getting the chassis to fit inside the hilt. So there are instructions on how to build this out there, and I followed them to the letter. And what I ended up doing was cutting my metal rods, and when I cut the metal rods, they made the chassis sit out a little bit too far. Couldn't put the cap on, so I had to trim and trim and trim and trim just to get it perfectly, but then the battery wouldn't fit. The battery was pushing right up against the speaker on the inside, and you can't have that because you've seen it in my previous video, the speaker moves like this, and as soon as it hits that battery, it's going to make all sorts of distortion. So I ended up going just a tad bit smaller on the battery, A lot of people won't like that, but you know, it worked for me and it works fine, and it doesn't really cause any issues whatsoever. But then what I had to do is, because I ended up trimming the rods to hold the chassis in place, the covers that fit on top of those rods didn't fit anymore. They were too long, so I had to trim them back a little bit, get them to fit. They fit nice and snug, nice and perfect, and everything works perfectly. It really, really does. As far as the crystal chamber goes, just lift this up, give this a nice little twirl, give it a nice little pull, and there's your crystal reveal. Put that back on, turn it on, and there's your crystal reveal perfectly. The only thing with this setup is when it's open like this, the emitter is not on. Which, you know, if you've got the lightsaber open, you really don't want it on anyway. Just wouldn't make much sense, but it still works. The emitter light just doesn't go on because your pins are way down here, so they're not making the connection with that pad up here. Not a big deal. I didn't want any wires up here, so that's why I did it that way. But overall, it looks really nice. The fins came out great. Everything is a close-up of that. Everything just came out great. I'm really, really super happy about it. Everything goes together pretty solid. Everything just seems to work, you know, super, super nice. I'm really, really happy with it. Let me take out the blade plug. I'll show you what I had to do there. So because I used the PCB holder here, blade plug was too big. So what I ended up having to do was just take my Dremel, take a little bit, almost like 3/16 of an inch off the bottom of that. Then I just sanded down the bottom on some sandpaper, and there is your emitter right there. You see it? Nice Scott Custom Works V3 PCB emitter. Just overall really, really nice lightsaber. The end cap, let me just show you here. I'm gonna take this off. End cap comes off. You can take off your D-ring if you choose to. But here you have access to your SD card, you have access to your USB port if you want to update it, and your main power switch. It turns it off, turn it on, and then you get your recharge port down below.
This is where the fun begins.
See that there. And you can always put it back, put it back in. And there you go. See the other side with transistors. Blade plug. And there you have it. So thanks for joining me. This has been a whole lot of fun. Like I said, this did not go without its fair share of challenges, but the key is when you're building lightsabers, just be patient. Things will happen that you can't control. You'll blow a board, you'll blow a switch, something just won't quite work right. But just be patient, you'll get through it. For me, when I like to build, I like to take my time building. I like to spend maybe an hour at the most each day on things. For example, I finished it like yesterday. Had glued these transistors on, and those took 24 hours to set properly. Today what I did was I trimmed this down to size, and that was really the only thing I did today was cut that down to size. Really just took my time, and really that's kind of the way you want to do it. You don't want to get frustrated. You want to make sure you do everything right, and at the end you'll have a really nice product. Again, thanks for joining me. This has been a great series. This has been a whole lot of fun. You've kind of followed me from beginning to end. Really since when I ordered parts, you were part of this project. So I really, really appreciate it. It's been a whole lot of fun. I'm going to be building another one. I'm building a Mom, Magic of Myth, Return of the Jedi, Luke Hero. Just waiting some more parts on that. I built it all out previously, and then just decided I didn't really like it, so I was going to tear it down and redo all of it. But parts coming from the UK are just taking forever. So that one I probably won't get to for at least a couple more months anyway. But this was a lot of fun. I really had a good time. I appreciate you guys joining me, being patient along the way. And hopefully this will sort of inspire you to maybe take up saber building. It's a really fun hobby. It can be expensive, but really when it comes right down to it, you got a really super duper product, something you can be very, very proud of. And just remember, it's not a theme park hilt. It's a real high quality hilt, a hilt that you'd be really proud of taking in to the theme parks, or cosplaying, or taking it to a convention. This is something that's, really you're going to be proud of owning. Roman Props, romanprops.com for the hilt, shapeways.com for the inner chassis, the parts, saberbay.com. You can check out Saberbay on Etsy and on the web. The Custom Saber Shop, order from them as well. They're customsabershop.com. Huge help. All those guys, Justin and the guys at the Custom Saber Shop, couldn't have done it without them. Getting me the parts, getting them on time, and not making me have to wait. And of course, Romans for making the best Ben Kenobi Star Wars MK1 prop on the market, hands down, bar none, nothing compares. Again, thanks for joining me. I hope you like it. If you did, like, subscribe, comment below, and we'll talk to you again real soon. Have a great day.